You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. And boy, do we have a good show planned for you. Why, you're asking yourself? Because David Bagga is our guest. He is the CEO and founder of the David Bagga Company. David, welcome to the show.
Rick, thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's get right into it, my friend. Talk to me and us about your origin story, your original inspiration and the motivation for you to launch this firm.
Yeah, so, this happened all in 2013. Former college and brief professional basketball player overseas over in Europe. And my main dream was to be a broadcaster for the NBA, like a sideline reporter for the NBA and for college basketball. And I did it for 2 years for Long Beach State. And when I was interviewing at ESPN and at Fox Sports 1, I learned pretty quickly that my dream wasn't going to be a reality, and that's when I knew I kind of had to pivot. And one of the producers that I met with had told me that I would be a great sales rep, and I should go get some sales training. And I went to a company called Paychex, selling payroll and HR solutions to small businesses. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really like my niche or my dream job, so to speak. Right? It's an entry level B2B job, and so. I wound up doing that for about a year and a half. And during that time, I had been kind of familiarizing myself with LinkedIn, and I was getting in-mailed pretty much every day or every other day from medical device recruiters all over the country. Because I'm a former athlete, because I'm a little on the louder side, I guess. A lot of these recruiters thought I'd make a great rep. And I never really had a desire to be a med device rep, but I was really great at connecting people and kind of just in a fast way. So a couple of recruiters had reached out to me, and one in particular was this guy named Russ Cipriani. He had told me kind of his journey, his story, and there was a couple of positions that he was working on, and I had given him the info of some of my coworkers from Paychex. And a couple of them wound up getting the jobs that he was recruiting for, and this other lady was recruiting for as well. There were different positions, obviously, but I had so much fun just kind of, pitching the jobs to my coworkers while I was doing this, like while I was being a rep, and I kind of fell into it. And so I was kind of telling myself, I was like, this is way more fun, than selling payroll and going door to door every day. And so that's kind of the story in a nutshell, for time purposes. But it was something that I kind of fell into after pitching it to people. And yeah, knock on wood, 11 years later, here we are. So
have you pivoted in the business? Talk to us about the evolution of the David Bagga Company.
Yeah. So when I first started out, I was kind of just kind of down to do whatever, right? When you go into business for yourself, you're really hungry and you're excited to, really just do whatever you can. I was doing mainly actually B2B jobs for about the first 2.5, 3 years. And really, I would probably say until like late or mid to late 2015, I was building sales teams at companies like Cintas, TriNet, the PEO company. We did a couple jobs at Paycom. We did some software sales positions at smaller and medium-sized software companies, but I wasn't really enjoying it as much. I was having fun, but I still wasn't really, I think where I'd found myself. And that's when I kind of dove into the med device space. And that's where I really kind of pivoted into in late 2015. And so I was doing a couple med device jobs, in 13, 14, and 15, but the real pivot came at probably in the middle to end of 2015.
What is it about that industry that makes it more rewarding for you than others?
Well, I think first and foremost, being a former athlete, about 65% of the candidates that I talk to are kind of like me. They're either former athletes, they're former small business owners, they're they were maybe actors. If you're working on jobs in New York or LA, like they're unique people, right? And so I kind of took that. I took kind of a liking to that, and I like the fact that we all kind of have something in common on the phone when we would talk to each other. I think going through what I went through at Paychex, a lot of these candidates we're going and are going through the same thing year to date. So we kind of have a little bit of a bond over the phone. And that's how really I think the med device industry kind of drew me in, if we're being honest. And but yeah, I mean, I think the real thing about the industry is that it's always been, I think, recession proof. I think that it caters to a lot of people that want to be fast paced, that want to get after it every day and hustle. It's a stable industry, and I think it's evolving every day. Especially since COVID hit, 4.5, almost 5 years ago, right? So, but I think that space I think those are kind of the big things, at least in my opinion, as a recruiter, that really get people excited, and me excited about it too.
So it didn't have anything to do with Orange County being kind of a hotbed for med device companies?
When I first started out, at the time, I knew a little bit about it. Now, obviously, I know way more about the med tech space than I did, 9-10 years ago. But that is a huge reason. But when I was first starting out, I just kind of took a liking to it because I thought it was so fast paced and it was so fun. But yeah, now, I mean, obviously, fast forward 9-10 years later, that is probably the main reason. Yeah.
So are these salespeople calling on doctors? Is that who their prospects are?
Yeah, so it's doctors, physician offices, hospitals, the operating room, the CFOs of the hospital, the finance departments of the hospital or of the hospital system, the HR people and physician offices. I mean, any call point in medical, it's fair game, right? So it really depends on the job. It depends on the kind of the company what they specialize in, and then once we get the specs, we tell the candidate pretty quickly, this is what you're going to be going. This is what you're going to be doing if and when you go in for this job.
Mm-hmm. And are these good paying jobs?
I like to think that they are, and so I like to think that I think depending on where you're at in your career, and I always say the big thing it always comes down to what you're looking for, right? You can be, I think, the world's best salesman. You can be the world's best athlete. But if you are looking for something that is, not real or not there, or there's no potential to get there, then it's probably not going to be the job for you. If you're looking for a place or for an industry to grow and to evolve and to take off and fly and make some decent money to provide for your family and have a solid lifestyle on the way, then yeah, I think medical device sales is the industry for you. And in my opinion, yeah, these are good paying jobs. I've always said too, Rick, that it really depends on the person, right? It depends on how hard the person wants to work. And it depends on, I think, how much you believe in what you're selling to make the type of money that you want to make.
So it seems to me that's a space where there's a lot of innovation. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, when you're placing positions, are they with the larger firms? Or they're more early stage startup, scaling? What are you seeing in the space when you're getting these recs for these open positions?
Yeah, great question. So it's a little bit of both. I would say if we're going off of 100% kind of like pie chart here, I'd probably say it's about probably a healthy 15 to 20% of each category that you mentioned. A lot of the bigger companies, they have really big internal recruiting teams now, like your Strykers, your Medtronics, your Boston Scientifics, your Olympus. They do still, utilize outside and third-party recruiters. But, when you see on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. A lot of those internal recruiters now have grown, and the teams have grown in the last probably 5 to 7 years. And then you have your kind of medium to larger size medical companies that maybe might be privately held. They might have still been around since, the 40s or 50s or 60s, but, they're not the billion-dollar company or conglomerate. They're still kind of flying under the radar. And there are candidates that like those type of jobs too. Yeah. And then you have maybe the companies that are coming out of like the Series C or D startup funding that, maybe they're saying, hey, Rick, we need a rep that's going to be with us until like 2028 or 2029 that wants to grow for 4 or 5 years and, help us push the product. And then maybe you have a real startup that has gotten their funding. They don't have a sales force. They want somebody that just wants to hustle. And so you kind of see it from different ends of the spectrum, but that's what makes the job so much fun. And that's what makes talking to the candidates so much fun and, really pitching the job. There's so many different types of medical device and med tech and pharmaceutical and healthcare sales companies out there to help.
So David, I'm wondering, tell me if this is an accurate impression. Having been in the industry for as long as you have and really focused in 9 years in this niche, you must have built a Rolodex of people that you maybe helped place more than once, or maybe you help place them and then they become the hiring manager. So is there that opportunity where you sort of get to not recycle, but, work with the same people over time?
Yeah. So year to date, total candidates, I've placed over 600 people since 2013. And majority of those have been in medical device and med tech and some pharmaceutical jobs, and the rest have been software sales, B2B, PEO type jobs. And so it's kind of been across the board, but I'd probably say about 85-90% of the placements are probably in, the med device and med tech and pharma space. And to answer your question, yes, there are candidates that I've helped more than 5 times. There are candidates that, I've helped place that are now regional sales managers, that are sales directors that we've had the opportunity to help once they get promoted. There are candidates that we've worked with that I've known since 2013, which has been pretty cool because we kind of, they took a chance on me to help them out, and the company took a chance on them as a candidate now that person is the manager or the director. So it's crazy how it comes full circle. It's really cool to see when, people evolve like that and grow in their career. And just having an opportunity to see that has been really special and really fun. But it's great to see when the reps put the work in to get to where they need to go to.
Yeah, that's maybe one of the things you don't realize, but the power of staying power and doing a good job over time builds this opportunity that you don't get until you've put the time in and you've done the good work, right?
Yeah.
Yes, which is a little bit of the wind at your back, makes
Definitely.
makes it a little easier. Doesn't make it easy,
Yeah.
but makes it a little easier. Yeah, there's throughout the time we've been together so far today and previously as we were kind of getting ready for the show, there's a consistent message that I get from you, which maybe is why you played sports as well as you did, which is this desire to work hard and be competitive.
Yeah, I learned that from being a college basketball player, and I learned it from my dad first and foremost. He came over here from India with really nothing, and to see what he did, I think about that every single day. And for me, being a college basketball player at the University of Arizona for 4 years, God rest his soul, I had Lute Olson for my first 2. I was on the last team that he ever coached, the last 2 teams, and I think besides my dad, he really installed a work ethic in me that I knew I could take and run with, or the qualities to have that work ethic. And, I learned from him, from guys like Josh Pastner, Jim Rosborough, like those are our coaching staff at the time. And I really took something from all of them and just took it and ran with it in my career. And I learned a lot from my teammates too. And, I've learned a lot from the guys that I've met that have gone on to, play in the NBA and that are still currently in the NBA that I try and just kind of get little nuggets from here and there when they come, maybe to our gym in the off season. Cause and NFL guys too, cause I think iron sharpens iron, and, you want to be around that type of positive atmosphere and positive energy. And, if you can apply it to your own lane and your own career, I think it's really helpful as well. And I think it's something great.
So you may have just answered the question I was going to ask you next, which is piece of business advice you've received that would be worth passing on. Is there something in addition to what you said?
So there's 2. The first one is I'm going to pull from hopefully Coach Olson hears this. I will pull from his book, from his playbook. He told me when I was an 18-year-old freshman, I was a walk-on and sitting in his office in 2005. I was super nervous. He told me that if you embrace the opportunity you get in life, it will embrace you back. I'm pretty sure any candidate that you talk to, they will tell you that I probably tell them that every time we talk over the phone. And so I've taken that and run with it since 2013 when I started doing this, when I started my small business. The next piece of advice, I'm a 90s kid. I got the Michael Jordan poster behind me. When The Last Dance came out during the COVID time, and in the first episode of that 10-part docuseries, when Michael Jordan says, when they're trying to break the Bulls up and, management wants to go in a different direction, and he says, he kind of told the team, let's put things aside and let's focus on our craft. And I tell myself that every single day. Whatever BS you have going on in your life, whatever distractions you have, just put it aside for 10 hours a day and focus on your craft. And if you do that, hopefully good things will happen. And so, anybody that is trying to start a small business or wants to do that, that would be my biggest piece of advice. Those two things.
Yeah, what you did and others who have been on the show over the years have done, which is to create a business where there wasn't one, in my opinion, is the hardest thing to do in business. Business is never easy necessarily, but to make a business out of nothing takes a lot of commitment and focus and energy. So here you are all these years later, scaling your business. That you are to be commended for the consistent effort you've put into doing that.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Let's talk about artificial intelligence. How do you see it impacting your industry, your firm? What's going on with your view of AI?
In terms of how it's going to impact recruiting, I actually already use it every week, believe it or not, on my job postings. It's something simple, but LinkedIn, they have this feature now where you can rewrite your postings with AI. So I'll do that to make it, more sexy for people to read. And just to kind of beta test it out and see if it works. It's definitely helped me place a couple people this year alone. I think also too is that what it's going to do is that I think it's going to be a tool. It's going to continue to be a tool for recruiters to use to get candidates. I know for me personally on LinkedIn, the tool actually will finish your thoughts in the actual post when you write it out, which is pretty cool. It kind of minimizes time. Those are the two biggest things I've noticed because my job postings are pretty simple because for us as recruiters, we can't give too much stuff away because we are a third-party recruiter. So and I'm a small business owner, so that's our livelihood on the line too, right? But I think it's going to be a partnership approach. I think when the more AI continues to evolve, the more LinkedIn continues to evolve, I think there's going to be probably like little tweaks here and there to job postings, to candidate applications, just to the buzzwords, to things like that are going to help people get the right resume to the right recruiter for the right position. It might not always be, a one-shot deal on the first try, but it's certainly going to help. And I think it's going to minimize a lot of stress going forward. I still think we're a few years away from really tapping into it in our space. I think the medical device companies that are utilizing AI right now in terms of selling their product and what their product can do for the patient, I think that's going to be another add-on that patients are going to be, sales reps, if and when they get these jobs, are going to be, tasked with selling. But it's still evolving, I think, in our field, specifically in recruiting. And I still think at the end of the day, we have to pick up the phone and call the candidate, to introduce ourselves, pitch the job. But AI is helping us get those candidates, which is really cool and really awesome to see.
Yeah, that was a great tidbit too for those that are using LinkedIn. Heck, we're streaming live on LinkedIn as one of the platforms. It really is a nice assistant to help craft up your post a little bit, even your comments that you can do on other people's posts. So yeah, LinkedIn is leveraging AI. Yeah, it's great. I'm wondering, you're a published author of not one, but 2 books. So could you talk a little bit about The Walk On, which is a more personal journey, but then also a millennial's guide to breaking into medical sales?
Yeah, so I have I have my books on my table if I can grab them real quick, but I can talk to you while I'm doing that. Is that okay?
Yeah, go.
Okay. Yeah, so these are the 2 books. So my I was gonna say the first one came out in 2009. 2010. and it was about my experience playing college basketball at the University of Arizona. And that's me as a excited 18-year-old in Maui when we were in the Maui Invitational. And then that's Coach Olson next to me in his awesome Maui shirt. And probably the highlight of this was that it got featured in USA Today and the LA Times, the Orange County Register, and in the Wall Street Journal, and in the New York Times as well. So it wasn't a bestseller. I'm a realist. I'm not gonna sit here, and I know a lot of people lie on LinkedIn about their books being bestsellers. I am not that dude. But it was featured during March Madness in 2010 and in 2011. And then I got the cover story on the sports section and on the Register section in 2009 after it was published, which was pretty cool. And and then the other highlight was that in 2011, when I had started my broadcasting career, I was networking with some guys in the entertainment industry, and this almost got made into an independent movie. And we were this close. I'd helped write a screenplay for it, and so they just didn't have the money to greenlight it, and so they didn't have the budget for it. But someday, hopefully, maybe Netflix will do something on some walk-ons, and we can base it off of this.
With all the streaming services out there looking for content, maybe.
Yeah, I think it would be a fascinating angle. I think just to kind of hear the view from the bench and kind of see like what we go through as walk-ons. I mean, I think that's probably where I think it would be probably best suited for, because it's a very, very very interesting experience. It's probably the most fun experience I've had in my life, but it teaches you a lot. You learn a lot, you grow a lot, but you have to grind every single day just to survive. And I think that's kind of what I took the most away from it, was that if I'm going to do this as a small business owner, you're kind of like being a walk-on again. And, not everybody's going to know your name. Not everybody's going to know what you do. But at the end of the day, if you are willing to help and you're willing to grind it out, then they're going to remember you. And that's what I try to do every single day. And once I had started placing people in the med device space, I had, talked to my two recruiting partners, and I had talked to my parents, and I told them, I said, because I was a creative writing minor at the University of Arizona, like I had heard, that it'd be cool to write a book in your field, just to try and help like people when they're landing a job. So in 2016, I started writing this, and then it came out in the summer of 2017. And so, it's crazy. This is already a little over 7 years old. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And, I've gotten probably in the last 7 years, I'd probably say over a couple hundred in-mails and probably a couple hundred emails saying that my book has helped people land their job, which has been probably the most rewarding part.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I know we talked about potentially doing a volume 2 of this as well someday. So when the time is right, but yeah, this has been a lot of fun. It's been great to just kind of, give it to hear candidates talk about it, and, hear managers talk about it in the industry too.
Yeah. And you're right. I think, and that's another teachable moment here on the radio show podcast, is if you're an expert in an industry, to differentiate yourself, write a book. A lot of people think they can write a book. It takes a lot more effort than, maybe not for you because you were schooled in it as a creative writer, but it's a commitment nonetheless to really put your thoughts down into a book that ends up being several hundred pages with content that's valuable. That's not an easy task either. So congratulations on that. Let's look to the future. What's the future hold for your company? Where are you taking it? What's the vision?
Well, so there's 2 visions that we have. So the first one is, I mean, obviously I love what I do, and, the running joke as a basketball player is that you always say, like, you ball till you fall. And as a recruiter, as a small business owner, is I kind of take the same approach and the same mentality. I want to do all of this and go above and beyond. I eventually, would love to play CEOs and founders, and that would be, I think, probably my next step in evolving. But I think, we're getting a lot into the med tech space right now too. And a lot of these medical sales jobs that are more kind of service oriented, or selling a medical service along with selling the device. Cause I think, ever since COVID hit, I think that's one of the real kind of directions that this industry is heading towards. because of the rules that have changed with hospitals and the vaccine mandates and things like that. So that's one lane. And then the other lane is we have a coaching program too. And, I love helping candidates that are trying to break into the industry that maybe they don't have the right experience, but they have the right attitude and they have the right energy. And we can point them in the right direction, provide them all the resources. So we have a training course. It's only $347. And when people sign up for it, what we do is usually about twice a month, we jump on Zoom every Friday, or not every Friday, 2 Fridays a month.
Right.
And for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And we answer questions. We prep them in real time. And we make sure that they're getting, all the attention that they deserve as well to help point them in the right direction for their interviews, for their med device jobs. So that's really what we're working on too, is kind of growing our coaching and training program. And then in terms of the recruiting, more on the med tech space and more in the executive space too.
That's great. It's good to have these other vectors to explore, other channels of revenue and giving back really to the marketplace. So that's great. I have to ask, how are your knees? Your knees okay? How are your hips? You're still a young man, but you put a lot of wear and tear on those things playing basketball all those years.
Yeah, knock on wood. Yeah, I have to I hate to say this, but in any hooper that's probably my age, I'm 37, and I still act like I'm 16. So, but any basketball player my age or a little older will probably tell you, like, we have to stop ourselves from ourselves. So, it's kind of, we're all on a pitch count. At least some of my friends and I are. Like, our runs are, around 2 hours ish, and I'm playing maybe like 45 minutes super hard, and then it's done. And because you kind of realize, it's like, I'd rather, come back another day and do it again than just run my body into the ground. But yeah, knock on wood, the body's feeling good. So thank you for asking.
You're welcome. My neighbor here where I live is been in a basketball league forever. It's over 30, over 40, over 50. And now he's playing with people that are guys that are in their 70s who still have a shot, right?
Yeah.
They may not have the wheels they used to have, but when they get out there for a period of time, they still can play the game. And so I think that's something that basketball like golf, can be a lifelong sport that you can get out there and exercise.
Yeah, I think you just really have to listen to your body and take care of it, every single day. And, maybe instead of playing an hour and a half a day for 5 days, maybe you play twice harder for 45 minutes each time, and you get a better experience too, because it means more as well.
Yeah. So if someone wants to reach out to you, David, maybe on LinkedIn, I know you've got a huge presence on LinkedIn. I was very impressed.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
You're welcome. Learn more about the company. How do they do that?
Yeah. So our website is, it's just, davidbagga.com. Pretty easy enough. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn under David Bagga. You can follow me on there too. And I always encourage anybody and everybody out there to email me their resume, or message me their resume, or email it to me to david@davidbagga.com. And I try to respond as best as I can to every single person, just because we want to do what we can to help. Obviously we can't place everybody, but we want to certainly do what we can, in our field to help as many people as we can out there, whether it's, facilitating their resume around to my recruiting network, or to, giving them, having them be part of our coaching and training program and our course, and helping them twice a month on Zoom. And, even if they're not, our candidate for the job that they're interviewing for. So I try to be as accessible as I can on there as well.
I told the guests or the audience that this was going to be a tour de force show at the top of the show. And David, you did not disappoint. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Rick. I really appreciate it too. And keep up the great work on your end. This is an awesome program.
Thank you. And thank you to the audience. You're a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. David's episode joins our catalog of over 1,500 episodes. If you're an Orange County entrepreneur, or you lead a nonprofit here in Orange County, and you would like to share your story with our audience, it's really easy. If we're already not a first level connection, make a connection request with me on LinkedIn. Let me know you're interested in being a guest. Haley, our producer, and I will help you get ready to be on the show. If we're already a first level connection, send me an email, send me something, send me a message, and I'll be happy to follow up with you. We're always looking for great Orange County based entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders Until the next time we all have a chance to be together, I hope every one of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.